Welcome to this installment of History Explorers. I'm Haishin. Today, together we will explore in detail the legendary career of Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill was born into a prominent family in 1874. His father, Randolph Churchill, served as Britain's Chancellor of the Exchequer. His mother, Jenny Jerome, was an American socialite. Despite his privileged background, Churchill did not excel academically and as a child was even considered a poor student. When he was at Harrow Public School, he was often punished for his mischievous behavior. In particular, his math scores were so bad that he even laughed at himself. I have a grudge against math. The turning point came during his time at Harrow. The principal at the time, James Weldon, had a profound influence on him. Weldon not only embraced Churchill's rebellious personality, but also encouraged him to utilize his strengths, especially in writing and speaking. Weldon's encouragement made Churchill realize his potential and begin to work hard. He won many awards in school speech contests. This not only boosted his self-confidence, but also laid the foundation for his future political speeches. Churchill entered the Royal Military Academy at Sandhurst as a young man. After graduation, he joined the British Army and took part in military operations in India, Sudan, and South Africa. His military career provided him with a wealth of combat experience and laid the foundation for his later political career. Churchill's political career began in 1900, when he was elected to Parliament as a Conservative Party candidate. In 1904, he switched to the Liberal Party and held a number of cabinet positions, including Secretary of the Navy and Chancellor of the Exchequer. However, he was forced to resign during the First World War after the defeat at Gallipoli. Nonetheless, he quickly resumed his political career and returned to key government positions. In the 1930s, with the rise of Hitler in Germany, Churchill became one of the earliest warners of the Nazi threat. He made numerous speeches in Parliament calling for greater national defense and opposing the policy of appeasement. However, the British government of the time did not take his advice and continued the policy of appeasement with Nazi Germany. Churchill took over as British Prime Minister in May 1940, during the darkest hours of World War II. France was about to fall and Britain was under direct threat from Germany. At this critical juncture, Churchill galvanized the nation with his strong will and inspiring speeches. In his famous speech to Parliament, he declared that Britain would fight on the beaches, fight on the landing fields, fight in the fields and streets, fight on the hills, and we will never surrender. During the Battle of Britain, Hitler attempted to force Britain to surrender, through air raids and potential invasions, but was met with determined resistance from Churchill and the British people. Under his leadership, the British Air Force successfully repelled the Luftwaffe and defended the British mainland. This victory not only boosted the morale of the British people, but also laid the foundation for the Allied counteroffensive. Churchill's relationship with U.S. President Roosevelt was an important part of Allied cooperation during World War II. The two men met many times during the war, received large amounts of U.S. military aid through the Lend-Lease Act, and jointly developed many important military strategies. Their cooperation provided strong support for the victory over Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy. In August 1941, Churchill and Roosevelt met in the Atlantic to discuss war strategy and post-war world order. One of the outcomes of this meeting was the Atlantic Charter, which articulated the vision of both countries for the post-war world that included not seeking territorial expansion, respect for the right of peoples to self-determination, and global economic cooperation. This document laid the foundation for the post-war international order. During the war, Churchill and Roosevelt met many times and, together they planned a number of important military operations, including the Normandy landings in 1944. In addition, they co-chaired a number of international conferences, such as the Tehran Conference and the Yalta Conference, to discuss post-war arrangements. After the end of World War II in 1945, Churchill lost the post of Prime Minister in a surprise defeat in the general election. However, he did not withdraw from politics because of this, but continued to be the leader of the Conservative Party and was actively involved in political affairs. In 1951, the Conservative Party won the general election and Churchill again became the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. During his second term of office, Churchill devoted himself to the restoration of the post-war economy, pushed for reform of the national welfare system, and continued to play an important role in international affairs. He was actively involved in the establishment of NATO and the European Economic Community, EEC, which promoted the economic integration of Europe. In 1953, Churchill was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature for his outstanding literary achievements and historical writings. His 6-volume memoirs of the Second World War not only exhaustively documented the history of the war, it also demonstrated his unique perspective and profound thinking. The award was not only a recognition of his literary talent, but also a tribute to his leadership during the war. Churchill resigned as Prime Minister in 1955 for health reasons, but he remained active and continued to serve as a member of the House of Commons. He used this time to complete his memoirs and other writings and continued to be a voice in international affairs. Churchill's health gradually deteriorated in his later years. He experienced a number of strokes, but he remained strong and continued to be involved in public affairs. He was made an honorary citizen of the United States in 1963. This was a high recognition of his contributions to the cause of international peace and freedom. Churchill had many major political opponents in his life. Among them was Neville Chamberlain, and the two men differed significantly on how to respond to Nazi Germany at the beginning of World War II. Chamberlain was highly criticized by Churchill for his policy of appeasement and eventually resigned in 1940, with Churchill taking over as Prime Minister. In addition, Clement Attlee was one of Churchill's main political opponents. In the 1945 general election, the Labour Party, led by Attlee, defeated Churchill's Conservative Party and began Britain's post-war reforms that established the welfare state. Churchill's relationship with Adolf Hitler was one of the most antagonistic and hostile of World War II. Churchill was one of the first Western politicians to warn of the threat of Nazi Germany, and made numerous speeches in Parliament calling for greater national defense and opposing the policy of appeasement. With the outbreak of World War II, Churchill became Prime Minister of Great Britain, and his confrontation with Hitler came to a fever pitch. In the summer of 1940, Hitler tried to force Britain to surrender through air raids and a potential invasion. But Churchill galvanized the nation with his inspiring speeches and steadfastly refused to compromise with Hitler. During the war, Churchill worked closely with Roosevelt and Stalin to form a strong alliance aimed at defeating Nazi Germany. Winston Churchill's career was legendary. His political and military leadership not only saved Britain and the world in World War II, but also continued to influence international politics after the war. His work with Roosevelt and his firm stance against Hitler demonstrated his demeanor as a great leader. Despite his flaws and controversies, his contributions and accomplishments undoubtedly make him one of the most important political figures of the 20th century. Thank you for tuning in to this installment of History Explored, and we'll see you next time.